back again, we are looking at the explorers. We've already discussed several chapters back about Lewis and Clark because of Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase, that they head out west to explore the area and to answer a lot of questions for Thomas Jefferson. When we look at the Lewis and Clark expedition and everything, it's May 1804. They head out with 45 members. They bring several people along with them. A French fur trapper they run into, and his wife has the name Sacagawea. And if it wasn't for Sacagawea going with them, they never would have made the trip. They start off with this French fur trapper as a guide and his wife, and not too long into the trip, they run into some Native Americans. The Native Americans actually capture Lewis and Clark and are going to kill them. Right before they're killed, the king of the tribe, the leader of the tribe, all of a sudden realizes that Sacagawea is his sister. She was stolen by another tribe as a child and had married off into this guy, and now she was back at home, and she's able to explain to them how they had, helped her along the way, and so Lewis and Clark's life is spared. Then they also, once they go over the Rockies and everything, that's when they run into the Nez Perce Indians. When they run into the Nez Perce Indians, they're out of food, they don't know the way, and once again, the Native Americans are able to help them make it all the way out west and everything. But the biggest thing that we can talk about in this chapter with Lewis and Clark is the fact that they have laid out a map of how to get out west and everything, and what is out there. They've answered some questions, and that begins a whole lot of different people headed out west. And there you can see right there with where they went out there on their trip. I love these little maps and stuff that Mrs. Peak puts in here for us. So, famous explorers and people we want to talk about. The first one, Zebulon Pike. Zebulon Pike is going to go out and explore the areas of Louisiana. He's going to explore Arkansas. He's going to explore Colorado also. The thing I think you should know about some of these explorers when we're talking about them, I can't imagine and get into their head of what they were going through to go into an area like Louisiana and just start exploring. To go into an old swamp and see things you have never seen before. I can't imagine the first time you're in a swamp and you see an alligator. You're thinking, what happened to that salamander? Because you have never seen an alligator before. These are areas, things you've never seen. You get out west and you're used to black bears here, and all of a sudden you're looking at a grizzly bear. You are in a whole other realm of experience, things that nobody else has dealt with before. And so he's not only exploring these states, he goes to Colorado. You're going to look at a picture in just a second of a thing called Pikes Peak, which is this tallest mountain over there. And he goes to the top and is able to look off and see all that he can see, and it's named after him. A little side note, if you want something fun to do, go onto the internet and look up Pikes Peak road races, crashes. They race every year up that mountain and everything, and there's no guardrails. Okay, if you've got free time, it's a lot of fun to do, all right? Not exactly historical content, but fun content since you're out of school and you're bored. But one thing that Zebulon Pike, he's writing back, he's showing all these things, and it's inspiring people to want to move out west. There is Zebulon Pike right above my head right there, and there is a view at Pikes Peak and everything, and you can see how amazing that would be to be at the top of that, let alone go up that on a motorcycle without a guardrail. So, another one, famous John Fremont. They nickname him the Pathfinder. He is a little different than just Zebulon Pike, who's out there exploring things. John Fremont is paid by the government to make maps. This is going to help territory because he helps map the territory between Mississippi River and the Pacific Ocean. He's seen things no one has ever seen before. I can't imagine being somebody like John Fremont and going out through there and seeing the Grand Canyon and not knowing it was there, not knowing what it was going to be, and just seeing it for the first time and making maps. How he is important is there are going to be people that want to head out west to see these things just because of what they heard Zebulon Pike say. But then there's going to be people that want to head out west because they have a map and know how to get there, depending on if you're more carefree or you just, feel like you need the restrictions. And so he's inspiring a whole different set of people to head out west. You also have people, another one before I talk about Ann Bidwell, like Jedediah Smith. Jedediah Smith, they called him half preacher, half grizzly bear. He is the first person to travel over the Rocky Mountains. I can't imagine what you're thinking to travel over those. He also is the first person to cross the Mojave Desert. The Mojave Desert is the area where they have a thing called Death Valley, for a good reason, too. It is a miserable, hot place. And to understand Jedediah Smith is standing on one side of the Mojave Desert and just says, you know what, let's cross it, and takes off. This is the attitude of Jedediah Smith. He is the first person to cross the Sierra Nevadas. He is also the first person to cross the Great Salt Lake Desert. Once again, edge of a desert, just takes off walking across it. A guy like Jedediah Smith would be a very, very interesting man to know. He is also one who was attacked by a grizzly bear at one point and had a chunk of his head ripped off and sat down and sewed an area of his head back on and sewed his own ear back on because he was out there by himself. You had no one to help you. If your ear is ripped off, you were the only one there to sew it back on. I mean, I don't know how that exactly worked, if his glasses were even or not, or how good a job he did, but he sat down and did that. He also, Jedediah Smith, owns the record 668 pelts in 1 year. I don't know about you, but if I get one during a deer season, I'm pretty proud of myself, let alone getting 668 pelts in 1 year. That is a hunting season that would never end. Another person right there, Ann Bidwell, another famous person from this movement out west. She marries a man, and his name is John, and she heads to Chico, California. When she gets there, she teaches the Native American children to sew, and her and her husband build Chico's first church out there. And out west, she felt she had a little more freedom. Not only did she want the freedom of her having rights out there, she wanted women to have the right to vote out west. She is going to lead a movement to get women the right to vote. We're in a year talking about the fact that in 1920 women get the right to vote, but what we never mentioned before is this lady right over that way, Ann Bidwell. She was able to get women the right to vote in Wyoming and then 4 other western states to follow, starting in 1869. If you do the math and everything, I mean, she is literally 41 years ahead of all other women in the United States getting the right to vote. And so out west offered opportunities for not only explorers, opportunity for missionaries, it also offered opportunities for women. It also offered more opportunities for slaves because we have Biddy Mason. Biddy Mason was a slave, and her owner during what we're going to talk about in just a minute, during the California Gold Rush, they moved out to California. And California is only going to be in the gold rush 1 year before it has enough people to become a state. And when it becomes a state, Biddy Mason's owner is like, you know what? We're moving to Texas. We're going to move over there. And Biddy Mason looks at him and is like, well, I believe you are moving to Texas. I'm not moving because this state California just became a state, and it's a free state. So you're free to move, but you're not taking me with you. And she actually sues, and in the court system there, she is told, hey, you were in a free state at the time it became a free state. Sorry, you're free. And the owner moved to Texas without her. Biddy Mason never leaves California. Of course, imagine in that day and age, I wouldn't have left California either if that's the first place somebody could actually win their freedom. So she's able to have more opportunities. Opportunities are just popping up out west big time. And what we just mentioned with the 49ers, yes, San Francisco, that is their football team name, and it comes from this. In 1848, a man named James Marshall goes down to Sutter's Mill. Sutter's Mill is where you grind your corn, you grind things like that. He is waiting his turn in line. He is not out there looking for gold. He looks down into the water and he finds a big rock, picks it up, notices it's different. He's found gold. He just picked it up off the ground. And so what happens then is this makes the newspaper. Well, somebody just finding gold on the ground is quite a big deal. And so it makes the newspaper. Remember, we said it takes 6 months for information for people to go from St. Louis to out west. Well, for news to travel is going to take the same amount of time. What happens is in 1848, it's in January, is when he finds the gold. And it takes a full 6 months for the people back in New York to hear about it. And the moment they hear about it, people are headed out west now to be able to find this gold that's just laying on the ground and everything. And it takes a full year for the people to show up. So if they find out in January of 1848, 1 year later, people start showing up in January of 1849. So many people showed up in the state of California this year. All the new people are referred to by the nickname 49ers. For those of you who watch football, you get the San Francisco 49ers. That's where they took their name. For those of you who watch Cartoon Network, Scooby-Doo and the Minor 49er. And now you get that reference and everything right there. Rudy Woo can teach you some lessons too. All right. So when he finds all this gold, people start showing up, and you will find gold in the creeks in this day and age because you do have gold up in the mountains, and when the rain comes down, it breaks and it starts to go down and be washed down through the creek. And so what the people would do then is they would go into the creek and they would take a pan and they would scoop up some of the dirt and they would slosh it around like this. And gold being the heaviest mineral out there, all the other rocks and stuff are going to start flying out, and what should be left in the bottom of the pan would be gold. To do this, though, you are going to have to get down on your hands and knees in a creek and kind of scoop with the pan. People are going to find gold every day, but that is not going to have anything to do with making money in the San Francisco gold rush and the California gold rush in this day and age. The money is going to be made by the merchants, because when these people all headed out west, they wanted to get there as quick as they could. They did not bring a lot with them, so the stuff they got there, they were going to buy when they got there. And they immediately get there and they need shovels, they need picks, they need the pans to do all this stuff in. And those people that had those are charging exorbitant amounts for them. And so those people are making a lot of money. The miners, every bit of the money they're finding is going right back to buying this. This is where you get cases like Levi Strauss. This is where what we call Levi's jeans get started. A man by the name of Levi Strauss moves out there. And there's all these abandoned covered wagons. He realizes that he's not going to make any money making gold, but he realizes also his pants lasted just a couple days in the water because of the type of material the pants were made out of. But if you look on the bottom corner over there, you see a covered wagon, and you see the material that it would have around it. It was a jean type material is what covered wagons were made out of. Nobody had jeans in this day and age, so it was just that type of heavy material. He began to take the tops off the covered wagons and cut them to fit. If you use normal thread in the water like it's going to be, all of a sudden it's going to come apart and it's not going to last long. So he took rivets, little pieces of metal, and would staple them to just a little rivet gun, and it holds things together. And so that's why jeans today, I don't have a pair of jeans on. Miss Peak has a pair right there, and you can see them right there. They have a little rivet on the pants, right on the pocket, on the right there. And then we got one right, you usually should have one right there too. Yeah, all jeans today, just look at the pair you're wearing. Hopefully you're wearing some pants of some sort, but you're at home, it's your deal. Look at it though, you should have little rivets over there. That is a blowback to the gold rush age and everything like that. And so Levi Strauss starts making money. Like I said, the merchants were making money. Eggs, people needed to eat. No one picked up from New York and stuck a chicken under their arm and brought it with them. All right? But the people that had chickens out there are making tons of money. Eggs were selling for $6 a dozen. I want you to get that today. I could go buy eggs for $1.99 a dozen for the cheap ones. I mean, $2.50, $3 for a really nice Eggland's Best type dozen eggs. And it was $6 in 1849. You literally, all the gold you found that day was going to feed you. There were, people were charging for a biscuit. There was times that somebody for one biscuit charged $5 a biscuit. Hardee's, $1.50. You can get it with a biscuit with a piece of sausage in it, better than your mama could make. No offense to all your mamas, but you've all had Hardee's, you know what I'm talking about. All right, Hardee's can make a good biscuit. Not a $5 biscuit though. Not even today. And this is in 1849. You would have worked all day to be able to afford a biscuit. This is the one that blows my mind. A barrel, 50 pounds of flour. Go ask your mom what 5 pounds of flour costs. It's a couple bucks. 50 pounds of flour was going for $400 a barrel. It was insane. Every bit of the money they were making was going right back into just living there. And so you had all this influx of people, 125,000 people. They move in. So very rapidly, 1850, you were able to become a state. And it's going to be taken in as a free state. The other thing, you can see these people right here. That is John Marshall, where it was found, and that is 49ers, and you can see the pan that they're holding. They would scoop those stones out of and try and find the gold in the center. The other part about the gold rush that happens is at this same time in China there was a civil war, and so people were trying to get out of China and moved to the United States. They referred to California as Gold Mountain at that time. And so you have a lot of Chinese, 20,000 Chinese people are going to flee persecution from a civil war and come to the United States to start a better life. Problem being, when they got here, you're dealing with people that are not making any money, that have traveled, gave up their lives to move to the other side of the United States to make a living, and all they're getting basically is paying for your biscuit every day. They were not happy people, and they took it out on the Chinese. And the Chinese were constantly facing persecution. In this day and age, they had that top knot hairdo. There's situations of them just finding Chinese going around and cutting off all their top knots. That would be like disgracing an Amish man by taking away his beard or something. There's instances of them riding up, shooting the Chinese and stealing their gold, stealing their equipment, stealing their food. The Chinese are facing extreme persecution, extreme prejudice and abuse at this time. And there are some pictures right there of Chinese gold miners at that time. After California becomes a state, California has even started to limit access to areas of town where all the Chinese are. If you go to most of the cities out in California today, you'll have an area called Chinatown in most of those. And that's because all the Chinese during this time were forced into one group area. They even would give white people tickets for being in a Chinese area because they wanted to keep the races separated so much at that time. And so in 1852, California passed a law that said foreign miners must pay a monthly tax. If you were from America, it didn't cost you anything extra, but if you were from another country, you had to pay an extra tax. What happens with that is you see a lot of the British, the Canadian, the Mexican miners, they go back to their home countries. The Chinese have nothing to go back to. There was a civil war at that time. So what are you going to go back to? There was nothing to do but to stay. And one of the things the Chinese were able to do then is they brought in good food. And if you go to this day, you know, if you want to fill up, you can go to a Chinese restaurant and there'll be more food than you can handle being brought out to you. So good food, cheap price, lots of it. Chinese food takes off throughout California. Everybody starts wanting that Chinese food. The other thing that they were dealing with is people that worked outside. The Chinese saw where the opening in the market was, and they opened up laundromats. to start washing the clothes. What's interesting is the Chinese being culturally pushed in and everything, then because of opening these up, have spread out to where you can go into any American small town today. You can go into any American city and you will find Chinese food. You go into any American small town, you'll find bad Chinese food. But you will find Chinese food regardless of any place you go in America. And that comes from the fact that they were persecuted at that time. You can go to any town in America, you will find a laundromat. And this also goes right back to the gold rush. So the gold rush, it did a lot for America. It did not give us gold. It gave us Chinese food. It gave us laundromats. It gave us the state of California. So there was a lot that comes from the miner 49er, but it is not the things we think of today. Now we will take another break and we will jump into the story of Texas and its independence. So see you in a minute. Or probably be longer than that because I know most of you are going to go take a nap and play video games before you watch another one of these. All right, bye.